going to go ahead and get started with our next presentation, and this will be the 18th time that Dr. Wiggers has presented since we've been here. Actually, it's her 6th, so we really appreciate her taking time, and Susan Nicholas for organizing kind of the Foundations of Teaching team. So thank you for doing that. And Rachel Coleman is not here today, but you're probably familiar with her helping out. So Dr. Wiggers is going to go on her own today. She's going to go rogue here. So, but today we're going to be talking about meaningful assignments and assessments. So I'll let Dr. Wiggers take over. Thanks for being here.
Okay, can everybody hear me? I tend to talk loudly when I'm in projector mode, so. All right. So today we're going to talk about assessments. And so I do like to start things off with some sort of comic strip. And this was the only one I could really find for an assessment. Talking about grading rubric. And I don't know if you've had any familiarity with grading things via a rubric. But you start out really good, and then by the time you get to that 10th, 13th paper, you're starting to feel it, as it were, feel the burn, as it were. So here you've got somebody grading a whole bunch of papers. By the time they get to the end and they've seen it, they're just like burning them. It's like, forget it. What I want to talk, there's several things that you can say about assessment, evaluation. There are books written on this stuff. So I'm going to what do you call it when you make things smaller? Condense it, thank you, into some very brief points that I just want you to keep in mind every time you think about assessments. First, I look at assessment as a very broad term. An assessment can be a test, it can be an assignment. It can be anything that you ask your students to do. What I want you to keep in mind every time you're designing something where you're asking students to do something that you can observe them perform is to understand that this is an opportunity to measure the student learning outcomes in your class. So that being said, don't waste the opportunity by creating activities that you think are fun to do but don't necessarily connect to the SLOs. We'll emphasize that later on. But that's the biggest thing most important thing I want you to extract from all of this talk, is that every time you think about, oh, this will be great for the students to do, this will be great for them to experience, think of it as an opportunity to get some more information regarding how they're progressing toward the student learning outcomes. So every assessment, whether it's test, assignment, even if it's a small assignment in class, make it count. So, classroom assessments, purpose, as I just said, they determine whether the students are meeting the student learning objectives. They're also they give you information to provide grades. Grades are part of this whole thing too. But also, it's an opportunity to provide important feedback for you in terms of how students are progressing toward the student learning objectives, and for the students, if planned well, your assessment should inform your students as to how far they are making progress. I like the idea, and I like to promote the idea, of students becoming more in charge of their own learning. To be able to do that, they need to be empowered to do that, which means that the information in terms of how they progress, the evaluation criteria, all of that needs to be shared. The instructor doesn't need to be the sole source of their progression. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so any sort of assessment should inform not only you, but also the students themselves. So, if you're looking at assessments then as a format of feedback, which is what it is, it's a feedback to you in terms of how you're doing in class, how the students are doing in class, but also to the students, then good feedback should be constructive. Constructive meaning I can take whatever information that's given me as an instructor or as a student, and I can make a plan to improve upon it. So constructive needs to be articulated in such a way, either by a rubric or comments on an assignment or something, so that a student can read it and say, oh, I need to do this better, or this is how I need to change to do better, or I'm on track, okay? It also, in order to be constructive, it also needs to be timely. If students are completing assignments for you, and I know you're very, very busy, but you're not giving them feedback till 2-3 weeks down the road, it denies them the opportunity of learning from the feedback. So it needs to be timely. It needs to be meaningful, especially if you're grading things like, if you're grading things like papers or things that can be sort of ambiguous in terms of how you give feedback. For example, doing a good job is great. Everybody likes to hear that. You did a good job, but it really doesn't inform me of anything. Okay? I isolate what is it that I did well or not well. And it needs to be learning-centered, which every time you give feedback in the forms of assessments or assignments, remember that the whole purpose of it is not only to give you an opportunity to give a grade or give some or measure students' progression, but it's also a way for students to learn. So when you're providing assessments that provide feedback, think of how can students use the information from this assessment. There are all kinds of assessments. And you have assessments that are more summative. These are usually in the forms of tests or projects at the end of the semester or toward midterm. And formative. In my opinion, the formative types of assessments are actually the most important. That's because the formative types of assessments are usually broken up into smaller steps that help you gauge progress toward a student learning outcome. It's also a really good way for students to figure out their path toward achieving student learning outcomes, and they're usually associated with low stakes types of grades, if you will. Okay? Usually you have several formative assessments before you get to the summative. The more types of assessments that you embed in your course, the more opportunities students have to learn and acquire the types of behaviors they need to adopt to be successful, not only in your course, but since this is 105 and 305, the kind of behaviors they need to adopt to be successful at the university. It gives them an opportunity to constantly be aware of just how well they're doing in your class. So, formative assessments are, I think, are really good. These are things that you can do in just about every class. Again, they're small things. Just a quick question and answer thing is a formative assessment. One thing, the quizzes and the tests, your papers, presentations, those are more like a summative. Portfolios, those would be summative, right? That would be end of semester. We'll talk about some formative stuff in a minute. Feedback mechanism. Think about how are you going to provide the feedback, either if it's a formative or summative assessment. If it's going to be a rubric, rubrics are great. Rubrics are ubiquitous. We've got rubrics everywhere. Ensure that students know what the rubrics are before they even start their assignment. Make sure you go through the rubric with them, because rubrics have a lot of subjective play in it. Even though you articulate descriptions, there's still subjective play in there. So you need to provide information on what you mean by this description. Okay? Maybe provide samples. That particular item is linked to a site called Kathy Schrott's rubrics page. She is someone that has been doing rubrics forever. If you need a rubric for evaluating your big toe, she's got one. She has rubrics for everything. So you don't have to construct your own rubric if you don't want to. You can take some of those and even tweak them. But I provide you that so that if you're going to have some assignments where either papers or portfolios or presentations or oral presentations or web types of activities, that's a good place to start for rubrics. Checklist is also a good feedback mechanism. A checklist is do you have it or do you don't. That's what I would consider a very low level type of evaluation, but it is formative. It does inform, right? Do you have it or do you don't? If you've got something that you're supposed to have and you're giving them a list, and somebody's without, that's something specific they need to remember the next time. So that can be good too if you've got something that can be evaluated that way. Of course, grading, key ratings, constructive comments and notes. I talked about that before. If you have something that is more project-based, like paper or a big presentation, any sort of comments that you can have would be really good. Just make sure that the comments that you make are specific enough that someone can take it and do something with it. Good job, can't do anything with that. Okay, you should have done better, can't do anything with that. All right, you need to articulate something specific.
Hey Nancy, could I add something
Yes.
about rubrics? The Department of Writing and Rhetoric gives us a very helpful rubric for grading reflective writing.
Reflections are really good. And reflective writing, I think y'all had in EHE 105 and 305, you do a lot of journal writing, which is essentially a reflection, right? Reflections, I think, are hard for students to write. They're not used to that kind of self-analytical thinking. But it is good for them to sort of get in the habit of doing that, because everything we're asking them to do is to evaluate. We ask them to evaluate their tests, evaluate why they make good grades, why they don't make good grades, so they can derive from that a strategy to either maintain what they're doing or do something differently. Something else that I do, I teach the online class for EDHE 202. One of the things that I ask students to do, which is a formative type of assessment, is every week I ask them to complete a quiz or a survey, however you want to evaluate it. And I simply ask them, what kind of grades did you make this week? Did you make any good grades? Did you make any bad grades? Why did you make the good grades? I want them to articulate something specific they did that contributed to a good grade. Why did you make a bad grade? I want them to articulate something specific that contributed to a poor grade, bad grade. I ask them what their homework assignments are going to be. I emphasize that homework assignment includes things like reading, things that are not submitted, right? And I ask them to articulate one thing different that they will do in the next week to help them towards improvement. And then I ask them if they have any upcoming challenges so they can start planning for that in a time management plan. That forces a reflection. That forces them to reflect on their performance, how they're going to change that performance, and to plan for some things to happen differently. Giving them a little bit of time to do that and prompting to do that, I think, is very beneficial for them to create their own habits. Another thing that we talk about with Bloom, with assessment, and we've got the student learning outcomes with 105 and 305. You'll notice most of those student learning outcomes talk about things like create. Some of them talk about be, familiar with, those kinds of things, but there are several of them that contribute directly towards an assessment. And many of those things would be listed in more of a critical thinking category in Bloom's. Now, Bloom's taxonomy, in case, I think everybody's heard about Bloom's taxonomy. If you haven't, I apologize. It's just a level of describing different types of thinking. You've got low-level thinking, which doesn't really require much investment from you except to regurgitate back, all right? So if you have to remember something, you don't really have to do a whole lot but memorize. That doesn't require a whole lot from you. Understanding is just reading something and, again, giving back. Application, someone tells you what to do and you do it. But when you move up into analyze, evaluate, and create types of thinking, you're having to put some more of yourself into it. You're having to take information in, break it apart, change it in some way, and then come out with another type of product. That requires a lot more of you as a learner. So, many of the things that you have in your student learning outcomes for EDHE 105 and 305 relate to more of these critical thinking types of levels of thinking. I will also say that the upcoming QEP for the university, I'm on the QEP committee, is critical thinking. So the university's got a big push now towards everybody at the university, especially undergraduates, well, it is undergraduates, doing more critical thinking and critical thinking activities and demonstrating critical thinking. So you'll have a leg up on it with your assignments, and also you'll help create habits, hopefully, with the students that you have this coming year, and getting them the habit of approaching things critically and critically thinking. All right. So, some sample assessments. We already talked about the weekly midterm performance. This is the whole thing about the grades. What kind of grades did you make? Why? And anticipating a strategy to do better. I also do the same thing midterm and final. One of the things that students have trouble with is actually figuring out their grades and understanding the contribution that individual assignments make towards a final grade. So I have them do a midterm reflection, same types of questions, but bigger. You know, if you're not where you want to be at this time of the semester, what do you plan to do for the rest of the semester so that the results will change? This is a great way of holding them accountable to what they said they're going to do, and it's a great way to help you monitor that they're following through with what they said they would do. Common sense inventory is a great formative type of assessment. You can use it as a warm-up. Basically, if you've got a topic coming up, you might write 20 statements that are nonsense statements. Some are true and some are nonsense. Get them to go through and pick out the ones that don't make sense versus those that do. If you've got a bunch of students that are picking some of the nonsense statements, then you know that there's an opportunity for learning there, right? It also gets them to start thinking about the topic that you're going to be in. Exit tickets, I use those a lot. I've used those in this training, where you ask students to write down 1 or 2 things that they learned in the class, or ask a question that was not addressed in class. Put it on a sticky note, and then they stick it on the door as they exit. That gives you something to base your next class on. It also gives you something to evaluate your own performance in your own class. What can you do better for the next class? What kind of questions need to be addressed? What is it the students didn't get? If the 2 things that they actually learned from your class was not really the 2 things you wanted them to learn, then you know that next time you need to address something a little bit differently. I think summative assessments, everybody kind of knows what summative assessments are. That's the traditional idea of assessment anyway. But you might want to think outside of the box, especially with EDHE 105 and 305, because it is an experiential course. It is I don't want to say developmental because it's a maturation course, okay? It's a maturation course where students come in as beginner students, and by the end of the semester, they should leave more experienced and more informed, better able to do the things they need to do to be successful at the university. So you could ask them to do wikis as a class. No one's tried this yet. I keep thinking someone will try it. I think every course could do a commercial for the next group. So you have your student learning outcomes. These are things that they need to make sure that they learn, but they can demonstrate how they learned it. And put together either a print ad or a video commercial or something where they can focus on what they were supposed to have learned, how they learned it, and present it to the next group of people coming in. It's a great advertisement, and it's a great assessment, I think. You have to grade that by rubric, obviously, and probably maybe a class vote to see who the best one was. But I'm waiting for somebody to try this. I've taught this for 3 years, and no one's tried it yet. Okay, so for any assessment, the basic things that I want you to consider, anytime you're going to say, this is what I want students to do in my class, first, make sure that it aligns with the student learning objectives. If it doesn't, if you're not referencing the student learning objectives when you're coming up with things for students to do, now I'm talking about whether it's a homework assignment, whether it's even an activity in class, or whether it is a more formal, larger types of assessment. If you're not considering your SLOs beforehand, chances are you're missing out. You're missing out on an opportunity to get feedback on the students and get feedback to the students. In my humble opinion, you're also wasting time. Because everything needs to follow through and support those. The SLOs that you have, I think, are pretty applicable to just about anything that they would need to do at the university to be successful. So any sort of assessment or assignment that you're going to do, make sure it lines up. Make sure that you understand how you're going to evaluate. If you are going to assign a paper, don't just assign it and somebody bring it and you're just going to read through it. Make sure that you have a way to evaluate so that you can be reliable and valid every time you evaluate something. And make sure the students understand what the evaluation criteria are. The more information that you give them on how you're going to evaluate, the more information they have to judge their own performance as they go. Okay? Make sure that the students understand the link between your assessments, whether they be assignment or tests or anything. Make sure that they understand that there's a link between that and the student learning outcomes. In general, if you like reflection types of activities, you can ask students to read your SLOs from time to time and actually evaluate how they think they have achieved or give evidence of how they have achieved the student learning outcomes. To facilitate that, they need to understand that there is a connection. It's not just hoop jumping. There's a reason why you're giving them these assignments. Okay? Will students be in a position to evaluate their own performance and progress throughout the semester? Take some time for that reflective type of activity. They need to be empowered to understand that they have control here over how well they do. It should not be a mystery. Their grades should not be a mystery. You're going to have to guide them a little bit because they're used to someone just telling them what they're doing. So get them in the habit of evaluating themselves. They can't evaluate themselves unless they know how you're going to evaluate. All right? And after you get the information that you have, or the feedback that you have from the students' performance, after the students have the information, feedback on how well they did, how can you as an instructor improve for the next year on the same assessments or assignments? Get the students to have the opportunity to determine how they can improve themselves. Okay? Any questions? I know, that was a lot of talking. I hate talking, right? Actually, no, I do like to talk. But I do have something to do. All right. What I have for you is an activity that is not going to be easy. I'm going to tell you up front it's not going to be easy because the student learning outcomes are stated in such a way that it's not going to make this easy. But from our last workshop, I think it does promote some thinking outside of the box, which I like. So, if possible, I would like for 305 instructors to manage in one area, and 105s. Are they already there? Is that what the figures?
I think we have several 305s over there, right?
Who's 305?
Well, maybe some left. So we've got, okay, we have more over here.
Okay. Okay, so we have 3 305s? Yes? Could the 3 305s congregate somewhere in a mutual locale?
Yeah.
Is that a term, mutual locale?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, if you are 105, do we have enough for maybe groups of 3? For the 105s? 3, 3, 3, 1, well this will be 4 maybe? No, 1, 2, 3? I hate to point, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah. If I can get groups of 3, no more than 4. Anytime you do group work, personally, I think you shouldn't have any more than 4 people. This is just something for you in terms of class management. I have a sheet for 105 people, and I have a sheet for 305 people. Yeah. And everybody doesn't have to have a sheet.
Whitney.
Last week.
Yeah, I think we've seen each other around. I'm in the additional transfer students.
Not everybody has to have a sheet. Could you give those people some sheets?
Do we just send the one for
It's just
group?
one. Is it one?
Oh, no, I'm just regular.
All right.
It's your first time.
Okay, with this particular activity, I'm going to give each group a dice. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to roll the dice twice so that you can determine 2 learning outcomes, and then one more time to determine the performance. You have a list of certain learning outcomes and a list of sample performances. Then I would like your group to come up with an assignment that would meet the performance criteria and 2 certain learning outcomes. It's not going to be easy.
I don't know which ones go, like, they always
This is so fun.
they always play little separate.
Okay, so we have to design an assignment or an assessment that combines 2 of the objectives in one module.
So we're supposed to just roll twice, and whatever.
Y'all want to group? All right. Y'all want to group?
They were supposed to do these first.
That's actually. And then, so we did.
You want to roll? You want one? All right.
It's really just all, you're.
If you come up with 2 learning outcomes that you think, oh gee, can't connect those, then you can roll again.
That's good.
Okay, has everybody come up with something? Are we ready to share? We've done our big fair share. Are you ready? Okay, who would like to share their signature assessment? Should I roll die and call them groups? Okay, Susan.
Okay. My team had a great idea. So the learning outcomes that we rolled were number 4, analyze significant moments in UM history, and number 6, demonstrate knowledge of student support services. The modality is high-tech multimedia. So we came up with 2 ideas. We are going to ask our students to create, we'll put them in small groups and ask them to create a video campus tour. We could incorporate principles of rhetoric and ask them to do it for different audiences. So what would a campus tour for parents look like versus a campus tour for prospective students? And then our other idea, also a good one, is the same video campus tour, but with a twist. We could ask our students to give a before and after of each of the buildings on their tour. So UM history, what was this building in the 1800s? Student services, what is this building now? Did I leave anything out? Isn't that a great idea?
That is a great idea. That is a great idea. How will you evaluate it?
Okay, we'll give them a rubric.
Okay. Okay. All right, good. So it'll be a rubric for you and for them, because the rubric will help guide how they create video. It also, the students can help grade each other or evaluate each other. You can vote for the best one, and gives you some information for a grade. Very good. Very good. What about your group? What did y'all come up with?
So what we did, if I leave this on for this part. Okay, so what we did was for our learning outcomes, we rolled explain our community's shared ethical standards as described in the UM Creed, and develop healthy relationships with peers, professors, and university staff.
Okay.
And so what we were going to do was...
What's the modality?
Oh, I'm sorry. And it was collaborative or group assignment.
Okay.
And so what we talked about doing is taking lines from the Creed and putting them in a jar, breaking the students into groups, and having them pull lines of the creed out, and then discuss them in their groups, and discuss how their interactions with their peers and their interactions with faculty and staff, we just kind of broke it into two groups, and with their peers and with faculty staff, can be influenced and affected by the creed to build and strengthen those relationships.
Okay, all right. So this is analysis that they would do? How would the evaluation take place?
Well, it would be more formative. They're
Okay.
going to be, once they get done with it, then they would bring them up, they would, either write them up on a sheet in the room or and
Yeah.
read them out loud to their peers. So
Right.
that they're-
But there's some ideas of what they're supposed to hit, when they're how they analyze it and stuff like that. Okay.
And there'll be discussion points after they
Yeah.
read through.
Good ones, good ones. I like the whole jar and drawing things at random. I like that. What about your group?
So we had demonstrate knowledge of student support services and then explore goals and requirements for several majors. And then our modality was high-tech multimedia.
Okay.
So we also talked about doing a video, and we talked about separating our students in groups of 3, so maybe have 8 groups, and give them a school or college, or like one of them is health professions.
Right.
And then a resource kind of associated with it. And they have to talk about the different majors, and then go to that place and either interview someone or just learn more about it. So for instance, for health professions, they're going to go to the health professions advising office. The journalism group is going to go to student media. Applied sciences will go learn about the Turner Center. Undeclared, because they wouldn't have a whole lot to talk about, curriculum-wise,
Right.
they would go to CSSFYE and the Career Center. Education would go to your office. And also go see Rebecca and talk about academic consultations. And it doesn't, we've talked about not necessarily being the major they're in, but just kind of random, so they learn about other majors and then we try to cover them all
right.
when they present.
Okay. So they're presenting. And how would you evaluate?
We didn't get that far.
Okay.
But I guess a rubric or...
Well, rubrics, like I said, it's the ubiquitous thing. But yeah, if you give them the rubric on the front end, so they know they can sort of gauge their performance as they go. Okay. Rubrics are a great thing. What about you?
So we had developing strategies to balance social and academic goals, demonstrating knowledge of student support services on campus, and the modality was a collaborative or group assignment.
Okay.
I may have gone a little bit meta on it.
All right.
But the idea that we had, based on yesterday's training, was thinking about Studio One over at the library,
Okay.
where they do their own multimedia stuff.
Right.
And the idea was break them up into groups in the class and have them figure out how they wanted to learn about it. Have them actually sit down and say, okay, we need to make a presentation that we designed in Studio One to turn in. And the purpose of that presentation is talking about how we figured out how to use Studio One. So we have to talk amongst ourselves and figure out, are we going to go like approach a random person at the library? Is there someone specifically? How would we find that person? What would we do? And when we get there, what do we do with the studio? Because we need someone to teach us how to use it. And so the purpose of the video that they're going to turn in, and we'll watch in class, is them walking the viewer through the process of, here is how we did this. Here is who we talked to. Here is how we came together as a group and discussed what were we going to do, what were we going to explain, things like that. And then for the evaluation, rather than a rubric, it would be sort of more like a checklist of, did you tell me what you did together as a group? Did you actually explain it all in the video? Like, could I, a layman, because I don't know anything about Studio One, so teach me all about it. I would want to say, have you hit all of these boxes and explain to me how you work together as your group to learn about this, to tell me about it so that I can learn about it from you.
Okay.
Basically, put the design for the assignment in their hands. And the only real requirement is I have to be able to watch the video and you have to sell me that this is what you did. You have to, you know, present it to me in a convincing way that shows me, and then hypothetically next year, I could use this video to show the next EDHE class and give them an idea.
Okay, I like the idea that you empower the students. I like that you're putting them in the driver's seat. I think that's really good. But you got to be ready for a couple of things.
Oh, yes.
I like it's a problem-based approach. I kind of like that because they're coming up with a design for themselves. And the checklist would certainly tell them what they need to include. Now, what you have to be prepared for is that you have no, based on what you've described, you don't really care. You may not really care about the quality that comes to you, because you can meet a checklist very easily with non-quality kinds of things. So if you're prepared for that, that would work. But you may want to
make it knowledgeable up front. I know that maybe only one student in the class is a broadcast journalism individual, and I don't expect, you know, Emmy-nominated shorts to come out of this. You know, I know it's going to be the best you can do because some of you have never worked with this stuff before. But the goal is to write that horrible first draft of your novel, so to speak. Go make that first crappy movie so that you can decide if you can make better ones later on. So
that's fine. But you know, when you come up with some sort of, it sort of guides them. It's not so much did you do it, didn't you, don't do it. What would you consider doing it well versus not well? Now, what you could do, again, putting the students in the driver's seat, you could have the students develop a type of rubric or some evaluation criteria. And what would you want to see in this type of video?
Right. And it could be the sort of thing where they don't do it, you know, I give them the assignment and they come back a month later. It could be the sort of thing where I check in every week and say, okay, where are we? You know, show me what your plan is now, and then let's move forward from there. Because you could do those formative check-ins. Because I wouldn't expect this to be an afternoon project. I would expect it to take some time. So those smaller formative meetings would lead up to a bigger summative assessment.
And you probably want to include some sort of way that for them to work in groups, because you'll have some people that will want to take it over and some people will want back, and how would everybody participate, that kind of thing. But I would either have some sort of qualitative criteria to sort of guide them into, yeah, this is good kind of stuff, and this is maybe not so kind of good stuff. You kind of let the students come up with that or something. That just helps gauge how much effort that they put into it.
Well, one thing I like is have one student tell me what the next student did. And they kind of chain it around so that everybody is not just responsible to themselves, but also to the next person down the line. And they say, all right, well, Amy came in and did this, this, and this. And, you know, I'm Bob, and the next person says, well, Bob came in and did this, this, and this is how it contributed to the overall project.
But anything, even if you're going to ask them to design the project and even design the criteria, it's always good to provide a little bit of structure for students. I think everybody likes just a little bit of structure so they kind of understand where the boundaries are. So that might be something you just want to add to your directions. I think that's great. I think it puts the students in a driver's seat. It's a problem for them to solve, but they'll probably need some boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you do it, let me know how it goes. What about your group? I think y'all are 305, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Our learning outcomes were differentiate skills necessary for success in upper level coursework and analyze a complex issue while acknowledging multiple perspectives.
Okay.
And it was public demonstration of learning outside of class.
Okay. What y'all come up with?
So what exactly does that mean, public demonstration of learning?
Public demonstration of learning outside of class. It means that there's going to be more than just the teacher in the class watching them. So it would be more public than that. Now, in theory, you could post videos. You could post a video for everybody in the university to see. You could do some sort of presentation for the entire 305 group.
So what we thought about doing was creating a pamphlet to be handed out to other transfer students.
Okay.
So, something where they would have to identify some of the necessary skills for being successful,
Okay.
and explain a little bit about that, and then provide various options for skills.
Mhm.
So they have to think about the different ways that people learn, as
Okay.
opposed to dealing with their complex issue, whatever. Think about the different ways people learn and different options to suit their learning skills or their learning abilities.
Yeah, and they're I'm not saying they're more of a specific population than, for example, 105, which is all freshmen coming in. You're actually looking at somebody coming in at the junior level. So the information would be honed a little bit better.
Yeah, and it would be specifically for, trying to make that transition from what we were talking about before with the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy,
Right.
moving into that critical thinking.
Right.
Because that's one of the, when, I don't know if you guys have felt that, but when you get students coming
Yes.
from community colleges, it's a big jump for them.
Yes.
So that would be included in
Okay.
that.
And that would be great for the future 305ers coming through. How would you evaluate it?
That would have to be a rubric.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe some sort of rubric that for some sort of description of how, what would define a really great pamphlet from one that needs a little more work. Okay, all right, good. All right, Patrick, Sam, what about your group?
We had number 1 and number 6, match your personal academic goals with effective college habits, and then demonstrate knowledge of student support services
Okay.
available at the university. And so we were going to break our class into groups and then give them a scenario of a student that's having they're withdrawing from their roommate, or they're having issues in class, or they're having issues when they turn in writing assignments. And then our students come up with places they could go on campus where they could get help and kind of get that student scenario back on the right track to learn. We would break them up into groups, obviously, and then go over, let them look at their assessment, let them ask questions, and then obviously grade on a rubric from there, create a PowerPoint, and then do it in class.
Okay, so I forgot,
I'm sorry, we're in class presentation.
in-class presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, and a rubric with that. Yeah, okay, all right. So, all these are really good ideas. I'm hoping we'll set up a discussion board for everybody to put their ideas on there, so maybe you'll find something that you can tweak for your own for next semester. Not everything has to be a big assignment. This was designed to come up with big assignments, but you can do smaller things in class as well. Some of these projects will be long-term projects. All of you talked about basically things that were long-term projects. You could create smaller things for them to perform in class so that you can assess whether they're on track, or assess whether they are working in groups the way they're supposed to work. There are all kinds of things that you can do in class very quickly to make sure that they're on track. But everything that you do, remember, everything that you do really should be tied to the whole point of the class, which is the student learning outcome. And you have to have a way to evaluate it, and you need to be able to get feedback from it to understand where students are at that point in the semester in terms of achieving these outcomes. And the feedback needs to be in some sort of form so the students understand where they are in terms of the outcomes. Okay? So, we won't do the sticky note activity since y'all have to stay. But we'll go the old-fashioned route. Does anybody have any questions regarding assessment? No? All right. Well, thanks.